My name is Shogun. Joining me today is my dear friend AinSoph, one of the original members of the Roundtable server. It's been with us for over 2 years, basically. And I think you were my third podcast. We've done, hundreds now. I think you were maybe third or fourth we ever did. And at that time, we got into some of the medical challenges, which are extremely serious, that you were facing all the way back then with the amputation of your foot and risking losing the other foot. And since then, unfortunately, medical and other challenges have continued to get more severe. And so today we're going to be talking to AinSoph about how he's doing, what he's going through, and how he's coping with what are unfortunately now life-threatening medical issues. So I think this is going to be a really important podcast for a lot of different reasons. Thank you for joining me, AinSoph. How are you, sir?
Thanks for having me, Shogun. Today I'm doing quite well, actually. Yes, had a good sleep. Usually I don't sleep very well. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are going on in my life, and I think about it a lot, so it prevents me from having a good rest. But last night I managed to have a good rest, so it was good timing.
I'm glad to hear it. So for just a little bit introduction to anybody who doesn't know your situation or your story, can you just take us through where you're at in terms of your situation and where you're at just right now in life?
Okay, so when I was 21, basically about 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with initially schizophrenia. That was due to a drug-induced psychosis. And basically, I've pinpointed a single event in my life back then that snowballed into just continual problematic failures on the medical system, as well as my own decision-making that just basically made things worse. So with the diagnosis of schizophrenia, I was given antipsychotic medication. And within that period of time, about 3 months, I gained 60 to 70 kilos. And with a weight gain, I was then diagnosed with diabetes. And that was the turning point with diabetes diagnosis. I was told back then that things will eventually get worse, and to cut a long story short, that's where I am right now. The excessive complications from diabetes affecting my life, although the schizophrenia, or now which has actually progressed to what's called schizoaffective and borderline personality disorder. I'll explain those a little bit later. But the mental health side of things have been kept at bay for at least 5 years. Although I've had small episodes in the last 5 years, the majority of these problems have not crept up on me. What I'm actually suffering most is complications from diabetes. And as I said, I was told 20 years ago that I would go through this, but back then you sort of feel invincible, and that I wasn't going to be like anyone else who has diabetes. I thought, nah, what happened to me? It's not going to affect me, and that's what hurts a lot, I suppose, because I should have listened, and I didn't. So the complications, mainly with diabetes, has led me down to a point where I have no right foot, and an upcoming amputation of my left foot in about 4 to 8 weeks. That's already on the cards. I've got an appointment on the 9th of September for pre-admission clinic to see the anaesthetist to discuss what will be going on when they put me under. The reason being is because of the excessive weight gain over the last 20 years. I'm very heavy-handed. General anesthesias, even though it's common, it is risky, especially with people who are very morbidly obese, which is what I am at this stage. And it's not just obese from eating too much food or excess fat. It's actually a lot of fluid buildup, especially in the last year. So to explain that, the fluid buildup was in relation to my kidneys not functioning properly due to diabetes. So there's just a lot of systematic failures affecting different parts of my body for the simple fact that I let my blood sugars be high for way too long. Basically being high for 20 years. Even though it didn't affect me like in the immediate sense, diabetes is called the silent killer for the very reason that it slowly kills you, because your organs start to shut down based on the abuse that the sugars have on the organs. So the kidney is basically not functioning well right now. I've got stage 3 renal failure, which means that when I get to stage 5, I would need to be on dialysis. And with the lack of processing of my kidneys functioning correctly, I'm beginning to build up a lot of fluid due to protein leaks from my kidneys. So my kidneys are releasing a lot of protein, and you need that protein to be able to have a good method of fluid to be released from the cells back into the blood to be filtered by the kidneys again, so that I can pass it out as urine. Excuse me. So the protein helps in the process of osmosis. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people know what osmosis means in relation to plants and passing of nutrients through the membranes of cells. Basically, the protein leak for me prevents the fluid to pass from the cells to the blood to be processed and to weed out. So I've gained a lot of excess fluid retention. I've been diagnosed with what's called lymphedema, where my lymph glands are swollen and not being able to pump out the fluid from those areas in my legs. So general lymphedema, or edema is another way of calling it, edema or lymphedema. But not only is it affecting my legs, it's climbing up all the way up to my lungs. So now I'm actually drowning in my own fluid. I've got little bits of fluid retention in the bottom of my lungs, and I have the inability to breathe sometimes. And even with sitting up straight and trying to take deep breaths, it doesn't help just because of the fluid. And although I'm taking medications for that, which are in the form of a puffer, with that fluid build up, and of course I'm a smoker, which doesn't help. Again, these are the choices that I make, and I regret it, regrettably so. But even with smoking, now that has been diagnosed with chronic bronchial asthma, which is like late onset asthma as an adult, because I never had it as a child. So the fluid in my lungs and all the organs between my legs and my lungs are filled with fluid. So you can imagine the parts in a male that are in between those areas. That is also very swollen, full of fluid. It's very uncomfortable. I can't sit down properly, and because I have no right leg, I'm always sitting down. And if you can't sit down, when you have to sit down, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. So all these complications, the kidney failure, and also the part of the kidney failure, the inability to process the blood, has also caused me to have low hemoglobin levels. I'm not able to pass oxygen around properly through my blood, throughout my body rather, because of the low hemoglobin levels, and oxygen is kind of attached to the red blood cells as well as the average person, and therefore that's also the reason why I feel like I can't breathe. It's not that I can't take oxygen into my lungs, even though I'm limited with that due to the bronchial asthma as well as the fluid in my lungs, but also because the hemoglobin can't grab the oxygen to carry it around my body anyway. So it's left me a little bit worse for wear. Doctors are trying to figure out what's the best way of attack in regards to treatment. Obviously, they think amputation of my left foot is something that I could move forward in a more positive way, and I suppose I could, because if I get my left foot removed, that means I'll be eligible for a double prosthesis, Although what that requires is for me to lose a bit of weight. So even though I lose a bit of weight and I'm heavy-handed, I'll be able to get a double prosthesis and immediately begin to start walking again, at least try to walk. And just that trying to walk will allow me to burn a bit of energy. Whereas right now I'm not burning any energy. So anything I eat just turns into stored fat as well as a fluid buildup due to what I drink and the fluids. And now doctors are considering fluid restrictions, which just make me worse, Can't drink as much, can't enjoy the food I eat, just sitting here like a hermit, not being able to function properly, and it's just, it's now affecting me mentally. And this is the bit that sucks the most because I see no positive outcome. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And of course, we're all, deeply in solidarity and sympathy with you for what you're going through. And talking about the mental aspect, which I know is difficult to discuss probably, but how has it been emotionally dealing with these challenges? What kind of emotional states do you find yourself experiencing, and how have you been dealing with that far?
Okay, so the schizophrenic symptoms have been kept at bay in regards to delusions of grandeur or the illogical belief systems that I used to once have, which would creep up every now and then, and I'd make decisions based on those thoughts. I no longer have those problems. I'm no longer on any antipsychotics anymore either, so that's a bonus. That's a good thing. Although I don't, I am what some people may say, I'm depressed, but I think that's more of a situational issue rather than a chemical imbalance in the mind. The schizoaffective diagnosis includes that schizophrenia with bipolar, really, that's what schizoaffective means. And the bipolar aspects is a cycling of 6 months to a year of, say, depressive and mania. And I actually rapidly cycle within days or even weeks with emotions. So depressed, happy, manic, and all of a sudden a crash. And it's just so rapid cycling within days. And that's when I was given the diagnosis of borderline personality. So there are other things to do with borderline personality rather than emotion. There are things like in the past, I used to believe in things like black and white thinking, which means it's either this or that, but there's no grey area, where in real life there is a grey area. A lot of projections, so you'd blame other people for certain things when in actual fact you're projecting your own issues. So that's a lot of part of the borderline, as well as and a tick of the box with borderline is suicide idealization. Where you contemplate things like suicide and even act upon those, and that has been part of our history. But not suffering in that regards with those sorts of symptoms. More or less, it's the rapid cycling of emotions. So yes, depressed, yes, but as I said, I think it's situational, not a chemical imbalance. It's when you're going through what I'm going through, and I'm going to be fair. If I can say that I may be exaggerating the outcome of what's going on just based on what I know, that could be true, but I personally don't see anything positive of what's going on in my life. So I don't think it's a bad reason to think that I should be depressed, if that makes sense. So thinking that I'm going to die, to me, is logical. It just seems logical that that's just what the outcome is going to be. I mean, everyone's going to die. I mean, I heard you say before, Shogun, 100% of people are going to die. And if you don't believe you're not, then you're sort of a bit not on the right path there. But for me, it seems a little bit closer to the present moment than I would like it to be. So if I would say that I had a projected time of a few years, maybe 6 months to maybe 2-3 years max, that's probably what I got, and that's scary. But some days it feels like it's a lot less because of just how I've how I feel. For some reason, I can't move at all, or I can't breathe, and I'm coughing up gunk from the liquid, or the hemoglobin levels have dropped too much where I can't even breathe, and I just feel like there's something that's going to happen that's just going to push me over the edge. And that's scary. So the mental status with all these things happening is making me very, very fearful and scared. And I'm, as I said, rapid cycling with these emotions just over and over. And I feel like I've not done enough in this life to leave a legacy behind, to make an impact at all, to say that I did something that was worthwhile, that I could be happy with. I mean, 20 years is like basically half my life. I'm only 41. And to not have to, like, I've rarely worked in that entire time. But on the time that I have worked, I've done incredible jobs and I've had incredible experiences. I mean, met incredible people. But at the same time, 41 is just still don't feel there's enough time to experience everything that I'm capable of experiencing or capable of doing if I had just that bit more time. And that's what hurts a lot. So yeah, emotionally is a big of a roller coaster.
Of course. And I mean, of course, 41 is far too young, and everybody here in the server is praying for you to recover and to have more time. And all those feelings are understandable. And I hope it goes without saying that, we all love you, we support you, and we're here for you in any way that we can be. And yet at the same time, these kind of feelings are probably an inevitable part of this process. Fear of the unknown and sadness of what we're leaving behind and all that. And I'm just wondering, have you been able to find anything that comforts you in these times, whether that be maybe pain-killing medication they give you, whether that be some kind of meditation, even if it's watching funny movies? Like, how are you keeping your spirits up given all these challenges?
Okay, so there's two ways two things that have made me happy in these times of crisis, but one of them wasn't exactly conducive to a healthy lifestyle. I'll explain that one first, because even though it affected me mentally in the sense of being okay with what's going on, it was actually one of the things that was killing me. So prior to, I'm not going to say the time frame, but I was actually using, I was self-medicating for ADHD, or rather ADD. So that was forms of amphetamine abuse. And that would help me focus and would help me deal with what I was going through without having to experience any of the negative side effects of the impending doom that I knew was certain. So I would be a user of amphetamine-based drugs, and that allowed me to deal with it mentally, but not realizing, and stupidly not realizing, that was one of the things that was destroying my kidneys. Obviously, the kidneys need to filter out chemicals and all that crap from your blood, and if it's working overtime, drugs does not help that cause. So that's another tick on the box of, yep, another stupid decision that I made to basically kill myself. So, I do play the blame game a lot with these things, but I had stopped for quite a while, but the doctor said that the damage is already done. And so now I'm just like, shit, I stuffed up. It helped me when I was using, I was able to deal with things. I was not unhappy. I was very happy. I was doing a lot of things, but it was an illusion. In the end, it was an illusion. It was just masking something that I was obviously avoiding. So even with the stopping the use of these medications, self-diagnosis medications, I'm now drug-free except for the nicotine and basically an opiate blocker as when I was younger, opiates were part of my my abuse strategy, I suppose. I'm on an injection which I take monthly, and that injection stops me from, one, being able to use opiates, but two, it stops me from having opiate withdrawal symptoms. So it's an artificial opiate, it's masked opiate that's injected. Now, that sort of things I'm going to deal with soon, hopefully. Whilst I'm in hospital for my amputation of my remaining foot, I'm going to ask to detox. And since I'll be in hospital, that'll probably be the best place to do it. So I'll be detoxing from the injection, and I've got full support of the doctors, but I can't guarantee that that'll fix a lot of things. All I know is that I'll be totally drug free from that point onwards, in the sense of illicit drugs, or not illicit drugs, but like hardcore sort of medications that are in my system. So that was the negative side of things about things that make me happy. So the really good things that made me happy is obviously Discord, and all my friends that I have on Discord, especially members of the round table and other servers. There are people here on the stage that I can see that I talk to a lot, and I really thank the world that I have these people as my friends, and that I could legitimately say are my friends. You go through your life, you meet a lot of people and they come and go, but with people that I've met on Discord, for some reason they stick around a lot longer than people do in real life, which is really interesting. It seems like there's this level of judgment that we don't have towards other members of Discord that you do have towards people in real life, like with the family members. They judge you on certain things and actions, but here it seems to be more accepting, and that's kind of a unique experience that I love to experience. And so talking with many members from the round table and other servers has made this journey a lot easier. So the things that I do with some members is watching some TV shows like The Orville, which is a very cool Star Trek-based sort of parody show. And obviously some Star Trek episodes online, and we all sit together and watch them online together, and I really enjoy that connection and discussion that we have. So that's friendship is the thing that makes me happy. I really do believe I have some really good friends, and that gets me through it. The other thing is my daughter. When my wife left last year due to not being able to deal with my right foot amputation, and I'm going to admit, back then we were both using amphetamine-based medication, and she felt it was the catalyst of us being addicted and not being able to raise our daughter correctly. And she was basically probably right, but I think she made the wrong decision. Or the way she did it was incorrect. She thought that cutting me out of her life, out of our marriage of 16 years, would solve that problem. It probably did temporarily, but it could have been done a bit better, I think. So, yeah, we're no longer together, but that separation allowed my wife to basically poison my daughter's mind, blaming everything on me for the separation. Basically said it was all to do with drugs and nothing to do with the amputation, which is really, really weird. I think it was a bit of both. But my daughter took whatever she said to heart and believed her. So for 6 months, my daughter never spoke to me. That has changed greatly. We talk nearly every day now. And, I help her out in the way that I can from a distance. And I believe she appreciates that, and she's going to be coming back to Perth next year to go to university. She's turning 18 this year. So she's grown up a lot. And, just me knowing that she's able to achieve what she has said, or what she has set out to do, that is a driving factor for me to want to continue to be here, just to see her achieve those things. And even if she doesn't matter. We're all human and we'll make mistakes. But I really believe in my heart that she'll be making the right ones. She knows all the mistakes I made. regarding drug use, diabetes, and incorrect eating habits. And I know she's like against certain things in regards to drugs and whatnot. She hates cigarettes, which is great. So I do know that she's tried alcohol and whatnot, but I can see that she's going to do well, and to me that makes me happy. And what else? Yeah, I see nurses every day, so this is another good thing that makes me happy. The nurse comes to visit me every single day to do my bandages. So there's about an hour each day that I spend with a different nurse, and some of them are fairly nice, very nice nurses. One of them is a Star Trek fan, and she's actually due to come today and tomorrow. And I've asked her if she'd like to come over and watch some Star Trek with me one day, and she gladly obliged. She said she'd love to, so that's on the cards. Some other nurses, different sort of personalities, and we have good yarns and good chats, and some of them have psychology degrees, and they're registered nurses as well as enrolled nurses as their occupation. But as I said, some of them have psychology degrees, so we talk about some of the things that I'm going through, and that helps me a lot. And another thing is I am seeing a psychologist paid for by the NDIS, or the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And as another member of the round table, Kashega, mentioned, asked me if I was seeing the psychologist recently, and I admitted that I wasn't, because it was actually triggering a lot of emotions in me that I didn't want to feel. And she recognised, and rightly so, that it was actually something that was healing me, but unfortunately it was a process that I had to go through. So yeah, there's a lot of little things like that make me happy and that I enjoy.
Well, I think that's great, focusing on those positive things and identifying them. I think you've done a good job of, accessing some supports, and I'm so happy that, the round table and this community in some way has been helpful to you. And I'd love to, watch some Orville with you. I haven't seen it yet. I've heard very good things. So we should set up some watch together events in the next little while, ASAP, because I'd love to watch that with you as well. And I'm glad to hear all that. One thing I'm wondering is, you said you take an opiate blocker. So obviously you're not taking opiate pain pills, but I mean, I've had like minor surgeries and injuries, and I can only imagine that your situation of having, one amputated foot and the other one amputated and all these other problems must be extremely painful. So my first question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, or just subjectively describing it, how severe is the pain that you're in day to day, the physical pain? And secondarily, how are you managing that pain? Because most people would be using something like morphine or some kind of opiate. So I'm just wondering, how are you managing your pain without that?
Okay, so the opiate blocker is called Bruvidel. It was very similar to a medication called Suboxone or buprenorphine, which I used to stick under my tongue. It was sublingual. And although it was an opiate blocker, it was also an opiate substitute. So it acted like an opiate, which helped with the pain. So it had a side effect of reduced pain, as well as having that opiate blocker. So it would be kind of stupid to have opiates whilst having Suboxone, because either you'd have to take more of an opiate just to get over that ceiling, and therefore you'd be really sick because you'd just taken too much, or you take an opiate and it wouldn't do anything because you've already taken the Suboxone. Now the Bruvidol works the same way, except it's an injection. So for me, I've already experienced the problem of what you're describing. That was a couple of months ago when I was in hospital. I was very sick, and I had not taken my Bruvidol injection because I was in the hospital. It actually totally passed me, and I'd forgotten about it, and I'd started to experience opiate withdrawals. So the whole stomach aches, the vomiting, the nausea, the sensitive light, all that sort of stuff. And even though I still had some opiate in my system, they tried to give me things like was oxycodone, and that wouldn't do anything. And the doctors were like going, "What the hell's going on?" It was like, but I totally forgot that the opiate blocker was probably the reason why the oxycodone wasn't doing anything. However, they kept on upping the sort of opiate type of doses, and what worked was ketamine lozenges. And the thing is, ketamine lozenges were not opiate based, so that sort of affected the pain receptors a little bit differently, and I started to be alleviated from the pain, although I was going through the opioid withdrawal. And so when the pharmacist from the hospital came and asked me, said if I had my injection, I'm like, oh shit, I forgot, because I was actually in the hospital. And she then looked at all the medications that I've been given and what was working, what was not working, and she advised the pain doctors as well as the drug and alcohol doctors, and it was determined that I have a very high pain tolerance. So, and also because of the injections, a lot of the pain's masked, and opiate-based pain medications would not work as well because of the high pain tolerance. So it was just a whole complication of things in regards to pain. So on a day-to-day basis, right now, I don't have much pain. It's not a lot that I'm going through, and that's probably because of the Bruvidol injection that I'm having. At the same time, if I was to have Panadol, that would actually help. Panadol works a little bit differently for some reason. Doctors did say that Panadol amplifies the effect of other pain-related medication. So that's paracetamol, rather. So I take 2 Panadol every now and then, and that alleviates any pain that I get, whether it be a headache or pain in my leg due to the skin tearing or the amputation site where it's still healing, as I have a small toe amputation only a couple of months ago. But pain, on the pain score, it'd be a 2 out of 10 on a day-to-day basis, and that's in sensitive areas of my body due to the fluid build-up. So that's the outcome with the pain side of things. It's just complex because of the Suboxone and Bruvidol injection, which basically means that recognition of pain in the first place is already skewed, as something that would be painful for others wouldn't be as painful for me, or vice versa. So it's a unique case in that regard.
I see. Well, it's great that you can get ketamine lozenges. I know that it's very effective for pain, and it's good to hear that your pain level is not too severe. That at least is a blessing, that you don't have to deal with extreme pain during this. Yeah. So, I want to touch on, again, the question of mortality that we all face, and just sort of ask, because you've probably given this thought, what are you thinking about in terms of what, death itself might actually be like, or what you think or believe might happen, or even just what kind of possibilities you consider? Because I know you're not yourself a person of faith per se. You don't identify as religious. So, and I know it's probably somewhat hard to think about, but what do you kind of envision that final, transition actually being like, or entailing, when you think about it?
Okay. So the most interesting thing that I could say about what I'm going through right now is that everything that I've studied and read and looked into regarding, let's say, religious beliefs or spiritual ideologies or anything in relation to what may conclude after a physical death, when you're facing that, all that knowledge, which would be logical type of knowledge, so tangible knowledge rather than experiential, goes out the door, and I've totally forgotten about it. And the very thing that I'm staring at is that event of death at that very moment, and it scares the absolute crap out of me. So no matter what I believe in or did believe in, it makes no difference at all. at that very moment where I felt like I was going to die. It scares me regardless. So, like, I've studied the sort of basics of Buddhist beliefs regarding samsara, or birth, death, rebirth, i.e. the reincarnation process. So yeah, you'd think that that would provide a bit of solace for me, a bit of a grace that I'll be coming back. But the times that I've been at death's door, even knowing that as a possibility, goes out the door, and I'm still fearful. I don't know what it is. So, being a Christian in the past, even that doesn't provide any safe sort of feelings. Hinduist beliefs, it's similar to the reincarnation process. That has no bearing on that feeling that I get. The feeling of impending doom, for some reason, just overwhelms me and scares the absolute crap out of me at that very moment. And regardless of what I know may exist past that point of death, has no effect on that feeling at that very moment in time. And that's something that I've experienced many times in the last year. And I hate feeling that way, And so then I have questions like, why can't I just get past that point? If I felt like I was going to be okay with death, I think I could handle life a little bit differently. But I'm living every day like I'm walking on eggshells, hoping that I just don't croak it at that very moment, because I'm absolutely scared shitless of the ultimate wiping of my consciousness and thinking everything is just going to go black at that point. And that is fear. That is scary. So it doesn't matter what anyone believes, or regardless of what is true, the uncertainty of what occurs at that point is what really scares me. And I think that might be to do with the fact that I'm not certain in a faith or a particular belief system of what could be or could not be. I probably have not made up my mind to actually having that 100% belief in what's going to occur, and maybe have cognitive dissonance regarding that concept. So that uncertainty of what happens in the spiritual realms is what's causing me to fear that process of what may come.
That's understandable. I want to ask you a question. If everything were to go perfectly from here on, in whatever sense, not just your medical sense, but your social life, your personal life, in any and every regard, right? If you could take your situation that you're in now and imagine that, everything went your way from this point on, what would you want to see? What would be the optimistic trajectory, in a best case scenario that you could imagine for yourself from this point to the future?
Very clever, Shogun. Thank you for asking that question. That made me smile a bit. And you can see how it's going to work. Okay, so I want to have a life, as I said before, that I wanted to leave a legacy behind. Leave something behind that I feel it has made an impact on myself, people around me, their lives, and my friends, and even people who I don't know. That it's something that I've done that could change the way that they see themselves or live their lives in a more positive way. So I've always had the idea that when I first had my right below knee amputation, that I would be in the Paralympics. For some reason, that has just gone on the back burner, the opposite direction. So when you ask that question, that realization sort of came back to the forefront. What I would do in the Paralympics, the reason I say the Paralympics is because I would probably get the best treatment from medical doctors that I possibly could get if I was on a team. If I was doing a particular sport, it would give me motivation to continually be healthier, live a better lifestyle. It'd be perfect to the condition that I'm currently in, which is at this moment a single below right knee amputation, although coming up to a second below right knee amputation. muscular wise, I'm fairly solid. I'm a big guy. So anything to do with weightlifting, shot put or discus or anything like that could be on the cards. I just have to get rid of the excess body fat around my waist. And then, as I said, I'd have the medical team on board that could assist in that regard. And it'd be, to me, being part of something like that would achieve that immediate need of having that legacy left behind. To say that AinSoph represented Australia in the Paralympics, that would be a dream come true. It doesn't matter whether I win or not. Just being on the field doing something would be good, and that would be a dream that I would love to fulfill. And everything associated with that. So a healthy lifestyle, friendships, getting out of the house at least. I'm stuck all day at home. The only time I get to go out is when I go for my appointments or go to have a coffee with my family down the road. But at least I'd be able to be out of my own sort of confined space that I've sort of imprisoned myself in at the moment. And also the ability to maybe write a book of my experiences. I've already written one, and I completed it in 2006, and it was my autobiography up until that point. But it was from the focus of having mental health issues, basically the delusions of grandeur, beliefs about certain things that weren't true, and even going through psychosis as I was writing it. There's evidence when I reread half of those things that I wrote, what I was going through, I recall. I'm like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. I can't even believe I thought of that. So writing a book up until now, having included them since 2006 up until this point, I think would be very eye-opening for many people. There's a lot of part of my life that a lot of people don't know about, and some people may think rather that even though I haven't travelled outside of Australia, I have met a lot of interesting people and have shared experiences with these people that I've sponsored, bringing them over to Australia from the US and other countries, and doing seminars on various topics of my interest, and sharing these experiences in a way that I could write about it. That would be, I think, a good thing to do and something to leave behind. That's actually something that I would like to do if everything were to go right.
Those are great goals, great dreams, and I would certainly encourage you to do as much writing as you feel in the next little while, journaling, anything from, your feelings to working on a book. I think that's a great idea. And as for leaving a legacy, maybe this isn't what you have in mind, but I do want you to know you have left a legacy, probably a lot more than you know. You did have a long marriage. I know it ended, and that's hard, just like my marriage ended, and it's hard, but that's still something that was a real thing for 16 years, and that's a big deal. You brought a child into the world, and so your genetic legacy passes on, and in some level that's the deepest legacy that we leave. And here on the round table, you have a lot of friends, including myself, and you've been a huge part of this community, and you've done podcasts, including this one, and hopefully we can do quite a few more. So those will be part of an archive that hopefully will be there forever and that people can listen to. And so I think, don't underestimate the legacy that you have left and the people who you have touched. And it could be a lot more than you maybe realize. And of course, even Alexander the Great, there's that old poem about Ozymandias, King of Kings, and he's just this statue, and nobody really remembers who he was. But at the time, he was the King of Kings or whatever. So the point is, none of us, as much as we want to leave a legacy, are immortal, and even our memories fade away. But, at the same time, don't underestimate the number of people that you have had a positive effect on. So that's what I wanted to say.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I do. I do recognize that. Yeah, I understand.
And I just want to ask, is there anything that this community could do, whether it be a fundraiser, special events that we plan, or anything that you would find helpful in any way, big or small? Is there anything that I could do or that we could do that would help you, in any way?
Not immediate, something that's come up immediately, but you did mention watching the Orville together, as in staged events or watch together events. I'm pretty sure if we can find a reasonable first be able to do that, that'd be cool. Other than that, no need for fundraiser or whatnot. I've got all the access to funds I need for what I need them for, and I appreciate the offer. Anything else? No, I think everything's fine up until this point. No, so far so good. Roundtable has done everything in its power to make a home for me and everyone else, and I really appreciate that. So it's really good. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And as for watching the Orwell, which I'd really like to do, I would suggest even tomorrow. What do you think about maybe 2 p.m. Tomorrow? We try and watch an episode together. We can make an event in the server for anyone who wants to join us. Or anytime.
Right.
Anytime.
That's fine. Anytime's good. But I'm thinking 2 p.m. will be about 3 a.m. my time. That'll be a bit too early.
Okay, well, let me know a time that's convenient for you. Our podcast is usually at 8, but any time other than that is fun on the server.
Fantastic. I'll let you know. I'll think about it. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward
to it. Thank you, Shogun.
Thank you, my friend. And I was wondering, should we see if anyone in the audience has questions or comments that they'd like to ask you?
Yeah, we can leave it up if they want to ask. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anybody has anything they'd like to ask or say, go ahead to hit that little wave emoji at the bottom, and we can give you a chance to come up. If you do have a question or comment, and if not, I'll continue my interview and we'll start wrapping up. Going once, going twice. So, AinSoph, Rafi came up. Rafi, did you have a question? Rafi, were you going to say something? No, okay. So, AinSoph, thank you. Drakar, did you have a question or a comment for AinSoph?
Yeah, I wanted to just let you know that I will not forget what you shared here today, and that it's I personally volunteer my time to help PTSD and trauma victims, and very few occasions do I come across those facing death, but I've heard stories and encountered this before, and I faced death myself. I can relate with the kidney damage and a lot of things that you went through in a different way. But I just wanted to let you know that it's an honor to hear your experience and what you're going through, and that I won't forget what you shared here today.
Thank you, Drakar. It means a lot, buddy.
Thank you, Drakar. Did anyone else want to make a comment or a question? If so, feel free to hit that wave. If not, I wanted to ask AinSoph, thank you first of all so much for sharing. It's very courageous and valuable for you to share this with us for a lot of different reasons. We're all going to be facing this challenge in our life at some point, and it's good to think about it and talk about it. And your experience is unique and important, and it means a lot to me that it's on our in our records, because that's part of why I do what I do as well, is knowing that people with my condition have a very high rate of premature death, and it makes me happy to think that there's at least records of my conversations and my ideas and so forth that will persist when I inevitably and probably unexpectedly die. And I'm not saying you're going to, but I think there's something really special about being able to preserve voice and preserve conversation and preserve, in that way, personality and what people can tell about you from hearing you talk. And that is now, forever in the records of humanity. And like I said, I'd love to do more with you in the next weeks and months. But I wanted to ask you, in addition to thanking you for sharing what you did, is there a final takeaway, a final message that you would like to leave with the audience in the room today, as well as anybody who listens to this later on YouTube or BitChute?
There is a little bit of advice that I would like to give to anyone who has been told that they've been diagnosed with something like type 2 diabetes. I don't know much about type 1, but it's type 2 diabetes. First I'll tell a little bit of a background behind this and then the advice. I found that 20 years ago, even though the diabetic scene is a lot different to the way they are now. These days, you got endocrine doctors and renal doctors and the whole team of multidisciplinary doctors involved in things when it's related to diabetes, because diabetes is, even though it is related to sugars and processing of sugars in the blood and everything else to do with that, it's mainly an endocrine system problem. Also, it's like insulin tolerance related. So there's many things related to diabetes that can affect other parts of the body, not just the high sugar levels, but as I mentioned, the kidneys and even liver, eyesight. For example, I've gone through eyesight problems and I've had operations on my eyes. Vitrectomies, 2 vitrectomies, but they stuck needles in and sucked out all the mucus and blood because the back of the eyeballs burst, blood vessels burst. So there's lots of things that come from diabetes. So if you get told that you have been diagnosed with diabetes, and I made a judgment call on that very day that I heard it, that it wasn't going to affect me. And I think that was because of the attitude of the doctor and how different it was back then to the way it is now. But the attitude of the doctor was like, if you don't look after yourself, you will die. And his attitude was very blasé and not nonsensical. Like, it felt like there was nothing worthwhile for me to believe what he had to say as 100% fact. So it was, even though I sort of denied, I was in denial. And I think it was because that doctor has to do this every single day, and it just becomes monotonous for them to tell patients that they're ill. I think if I was told differently in a different way, I may have taken it a little bit more seriously. So regardless of how they say it, do take a diagnosis of diabetes as a serious diagnosis. It's not just a matter of having high sugar levels, because even though you get used to the high sugar levels and you feel fine and you're normal, you don't suffer any immediate problems. One day, your left eye is just going to go blind because the back of the eyes just burst, and then your kidneys are going to start failing, and then your liver is going to get fatty tissue, and you're going to have things like hemoglobin not being able to carry the oxygen around. So you got low hemoglobin levels, and there's just so many complications. Like a toe will come off, and the foot will come off, and it grows up your leg, and then it just, so many things. Don't take it seriously. You do not want to have to deal with so many other problems and have so many different doctors on a team to look after you, let alone just one doctor having to trying to help you. So it's not an easy fix. There's a lot of things that need to be done to reverse the problem, let alone maintain it. And just don't let it get out of hand. If you get diagnosed with diabetes, just make sure you keep on top of it and you treat it seriously. For me, I feel like it's a bit too late. I can only maintain what I've got left. But if you've recently been diagnosed, make sure it's up there on one of the top 5 things you need to look after. Yeah, that's what I'd like to say.
Well, thank you so much, AinSoph, for that great advice. I hope that reaches somebody and makes a difference for them. I'm sure it will. And I know that hearing your story has made a difference for all of us. And again, we're so grateful to have had you with us since the beginning of the server. And we look forward to spending time together as friends for a long time to come. And so thank you again for your time, for sharing your story. I want to remind everyone in the server that we're doing a server-wide prayer vigil for AinSoph. So whether you are a Christian, a Muslim, an atheist, or of some other denomination or belief, please send your positive prayers for healing, for health, for comfort to AinSoph. Send him your positive vibes. Send him a direct message. Send him some kind words, whatever and however you can show your support as a community. We want to be there for each other in times like these. And so I just want to leave you guys with that. Again, AinSoph, thank you so much. I know it can't be easy to be going through this and then also to take the time and share these things openly as you've done. And, you know, this is a legacy, right? This is something that will persist, and I know I'll listen to it again, and I'm sure others will as well. So thank you from the bottom of our heart, and God bless you, my friend. And thank you, everyone in the audience, for attending and listening. Thank you, Rafi, for recording. So again, thank you, AinSoph, my brother. We love you. And that'll conclude this podcast.